Hello, everyone. Some folks coming in already. Awesome. If you would, as you're coming in, if you could just tell us where you're joining us from in the chat. We would love to see where folks are from. It also helps us make sure the chat is working. All the way from Honolulu. Wendy, welcome. We've got all the way from Connecticut to Hawaii. Got some fellow Floridians. I'm in Florida. On the other coast, on the Atlantic coast. Here comes Canada. Very cool. If you're just joining us, welcome. We'll give folks about a minute, and if you'd like to share where you're joining us from in the chat, we'd love to see that. I see some sports team shout outs happening. Fantastic. Okay, well, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Dana from Amelia. I will be your host today. A little bit of housekeeping as folks are still coming in and we're getting started. Everyone is automatically put on mute, but as many of you have already interacted with the chat, it's there for you to interact with us and with each other. So please utilize that for any conversations. We also have a Q&A function, so you'll see that on your row of settings there to submit questions. We'll have a Q&A time at the end where you can ask those of our panelists and we'll address those. And one last housekeeping item, there'll be a survey that will pop up at the end for you. We'd love to get your feedback and make these as valuable as possible in the future. So thank you again all for joining us. The agenda today, we're going to have intros from our panelists in just a moment. And you can see the agenda there. We're going to take a look at AI. What is all the hype and what does it look like without the hype? Common ground, what are we seeing across the industry? Where are the gaps? This is all so new, so fast in so many ways, right? And then what does that mean for community-led organizations? And as I mentioned, then we'll have the live Q&A. So we've got three amazing panelists today. I'm going to let them introduce themselves if they would, and I'll pass to Andrew first.
Sounds good. Hello, folks. Excited for the session and glad you all could join us. My name's Andrew. I'm on the product marketing team at Amelia. And a big part of our role is in understanding the market and customer needs in the space. And so research is a big part of what we do. Most of what I hope to accomplish today is to learn from Greg, from other folks on the call about your experiences so far with AI tools. And yeah, I'm going to pass over to my teammate Ines to introduce herself.
Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone. My name is Ines. I'm also on the product marketing team at Amelia. We focus on shaping the go-to-market strategy and product positioning for various product areas. We lead the messaging, product launches, and support enablement efforts to help organizations better understand and adopt our solutions. And I'm really looking forward to today's webinar and connecting with all of you. I'll pass it over to Greg.
Hi, everyone. My name's Greg. I'm with the Westfield area YMCA, which is in New Jersey. I've been with the Y for almost 18 years now. I've started out in fitness, overseeing a fitness department, ran sports, oversaw aquatics, swim team. Been been through the opening of a new branch, and manage or ultimately oversee childcare and camp and our entire operation now. So that's my background. We've been with Amelia for, I want to say, almost 2 years now, coming up on 2 years. Yeah, that's our background.
Excellent. Thank you, Greg. As I said from the very beginning, I'm Dana from Amelia. I'm part of our sales team. So if you have questions following this, would like to see a demo of Amelia, I would be happy to provide that for you. I spent 12 years working for 2 different YMCA associations, Greater Boston and Middle Tennessee, before coming over to the software world. So I'm passionate about the work that you all do, and would love to connect. Before I hand it off to the speakers, let me just make sure that everyone is aware of who Amelia is and what we do. I think a lot of you know this, but we do provide a recreation and membership management platform. We believe that you should be able to sign up for things like sports, community events, memberships, swim lessons. All of those things should be just as easy as buying, sneakers or a book or anything online, all the things that we always do. So, we are very passionate about streamlining those processes and simplifying payments and reducing staff workload. So we are here for that. Amelia serves about 1,500 organizations across North America. And we're passionate about helping people stay engaged in their communities and stay healthy and active. So with that, I will pass it off to our presenters to get into the presentation.
Thank you, Dana. Let's take a look at AI without the hype. AI is everywhere, so how should we approach it in nonprofits? So before we get started, we know that technology moves fast and new tools appear quickly, expectations change, and AI is increasingly part of how people search, decide, and get support in their everyday lives. What we wanted to do first was step back and look at the reality, not the assumptions. So in this research, we saw that familiarity with AI is already high on both sides. Many community members are using AI regularly, and most professionals are at least somewhat familiar with it as well. And at the same time, actual adoption inside organizations is still limited, and readiness varies widely. So confidence isn't about whether AI exists, it's about where it fits and where it doesn't. So the real question we heard was not should we use AI? It was more around where does AI genuinely help families? Where does it support staff without introducing risks? And where are expectations already ahead of our systems? So this session exists to look at those gaps between familiarity and adoption, expectations and readiness, using real input from both community members and recreation professionals. So moving on here, one thing the research made clear is that there's real pressure building around AI adoption in the industry. Many organizations feel they should be doing something, even when it's not clear what that something is. This session isn't about adopting AI for AI's sake. It's about challenging ourselves to ask the right questions. Are we solving the right problems? Are we supporting people, families, staff, in ways that actually matter? This research has helped shape Amelia's approach to AI around that same idea. Progress should be intentional, people first, and aligned with real needs, not driven by trends and pressure. And as we reviewed the research, a few themes kept surfacing, and they've actually shaped how we're thinking about AI overall. The first point is it pointed us to asking better questions, where actually AI makes an impact, where people want it, and where trust matters most. Secondly, it reinforced the importance of focusing on outcomes, not AI features, but the real tasks and decisions that create value for organizations, staff, and communities. And finally, it highlighted that AI works best when it's applied selectively, supporting complexity where it exists, while leaving simple, intuitive experiences alone. You'll see these ideas show up repeatedly as we walk through the data and talk about what it means in practice. So I'll pass it over to Andrew for the first poll question.
Sounds great. Okay, so we're going to kick us off with a poll before getting into the research. And Dana, you can set up the poll for folks on the call to share their perspectives. But the question is, where is your organization's AI use today? And so there's four answers you'll see, which is that you're not using AI in any capacity yet, that you are doing some informal experimentation, perhaps some limited use, so there are ways you're using it already, or you have an active strategy. You're embedding it into different departments and areas within your organization. So I'll let you all submit your answers, and in the meantime, maybe I'll ask Greg, what's your experience so far?
So we're probably not quite an active strategy, but trying to get there, I would say. We most of us use it for ChatGPT, Copilot. We'll use AI for note taking. We just did a presentation on that yesterday, actually, at one of our staff meetings. We've used it to help assist with grants and job descriptions, and we just conducted a large member survey last year, and we used it to help summarize the data. So lots of different ways that we'll use it.
Okay, ready for me to share, Andrew?
Yes, please. Okay, so some neat answers here. We've got more than half of folks on the call that answered that they're using it in limited ways already within their organization, which is really neat. I think that's somewhat in line with the data that we're going to show. There's also nearly a quarter that is informally experimenting, 16% with an active strategy, and just a handful not using AI in any way. So what we could do is dive into the findings of our research now, and we can move ahead to the next slide, where I'll give a quick note on the research itself. This is based on two surveys conducted in late last year, late 2025. One with community members who have participated in recreation programs recently, and one with recreation professionals in the nonprofit space from across our network. And together, they've given us a grounded view of AI expectations, usage, readiness from both perspectives, and a holistic perspective on the industry. So we're going to dive right in here. So I want to touch on the common ground. The research makes one thing clear right away. When it comes to AI, communities and the organizations that serve them are starting more from common ground than we might expect. And I'm going to show some figures to illustrate what that means. One of the clearest signals in the research is that AI is not new to either side of the field. Participants are already using AI regularly in their daily lives, and professionals, especially leaders and managers and directors and so on, are quite familiar with AI as well. And so that means this conversation we're having today isn't starting from awareness, it's actually starting from experience. And I'm going to pause there and ask Greg if you found within your community that that members and participants are also showing curiosity about AI in how they interact with your organization, or maybe that isn't happening quite yet.
I think they are, and I feel like AI is such a new type of topic for a lot of us that we're learning it together. I feel like our members are learning it and exploring it just as we are. So I think that having sessions like this and opportunities to sort of see what others are doing and learn a little bit more is a great way to sort of move the needle forward.
Very cool. That makes sense. All right. Well, let's look at some more findings and really get into what we've learned. So the alignment that I was referring to makes sense when you look at where people encounter AI most often. It's already a part of their everyday experiences, from customer service to shopping to fitness apps to learning platforms. And I would say learning tools, especially AI, often shows up in supportive ways. So either adapting content or offering feedback to help people improve something. Now, that makes this next stat feel a bit surprising, which is when 65% of participants say they've encountered AI during sign up or payment, they're likely counting a range of experiences, from chatbots and smart forms to behind the scenes payment and support tools. The takeaway isn't that recreation platforms are highly advanced or should be. It's that expectations are already being shaped elsewhere, and people are starting to notice intelligence show up here as well. So where this really comes together is when we look at where people actually want AI to help. Participants prioritize convenience and clarity, which can translate to finding the right programs, getting quick answers, staying informed. And professionals are most open to AI where it reduces friction, improves access, or supports their decision making. So in other words, there's more agreement here than disagreement, especially when AI is framed as a way to support people, not replace them. And so the starting point is without a doubt alignment. Familiarity is high. Priorities on both sides seem to overlap, and there's this shared agreement on where AI can help. And so the next question becomes: if alignment exists, what's holding adoption back? And so I'm going to ask you all in the chat, what AI tool do you currently use the most? And what do you use it for in your organization? And in the meantime, as we see answers start to roll in, Greg, I'll ask the same of you. What tools are you using today?
We use ChatGPT. We use Copilot. Specifically with Amelia, you guys have Cecilia, the chatbot, which is very helpful. Sometimes you need a real person to answer a question. Maybe your question's a little more detailed, and it's nice to have that access. But by the same token, sometimes it's just something quick and easy, and you don't need to talk to a real person. So it's nice to have that availability to just sort of type something in and get a quick answer. So those are some of the different tools that we use.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And I think just to call out for folks on the call, a reminder that these messages are public in the webinar chat, but we're starting to see that folks are using ChatGPT and Microsoft Power Automate for communication and workflows. This is something we're seeing a lot of in the space. That is, help with writing, help with communications, marketing efforts, and public outreach programs, that sort of thing. So that's all super interesting to hear. Copilot is mentioned as well for internal operations, along with all of Microsoft 365. But ChatGPT seems to be the one that stands out the most. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Ines to talk about the gaps that matter.
Thank you, Andrew. So we're touching now on the gaps that matter. While there's clear alignment around expectations, the research also highlighted some important gaps, which we can look at as signals of how organizations are and can thoughtfully navigate change. So let's take a look at the results. Yes, so on the organizational side, the story starts with a familiar pattern. Awareness is high. Most leaders and managers understand AI and follow it, at least casually. But when we look at actual usage, nearly 40% of organizations aren't using any AI tools today. And where AI is in use, it's mostly behind the scenes, like admin work, marketing, basic data tasks. This is one of the most important gaps in the research. Knowing about AI doesn't automatically translate into action, not because organizations are opposed, but because they're still deciding where AI actually belongs. So we're going to ask you this question. What do you think most often slows AI adoption in recreation organizations today? Is it unclear where AI would add real value? Is it limited staff capacity, time, or expertise? Is it because of privacy, ethical, or trust concerns, or because of budget, sustainability, or competing priorities? And in the meantime, I'll ask you, Greg, what has been your experience so far in regards to adoption?
Boy, that's a good question. I think that, a lot of these things could apply. I mean, privacy is certainly very important because, the safety, our members' data, our staff's information for that matter, all that's very important. So privacy has to be at the forefront, in my opinion, of anything that you consider adopting in terms of technology. But in the reality of, the YMCA space and I'm assuming Parks and Recs is similar, every day is a different day. You come in thinking, all right, here's my plan for the day, and that just changes sometimes. So there's definitely a reality behind, staffing constraints and, really just sitting down and saying, okay, what's our strategy going to be? How are we going to do this? And really planning for the future. But capacity of staffing is certainly a reality. And for some people, budget may be a concern. Sometimes, you have to make a little bit of investment for it to sort of pay off in the future. But then again, there's a lot of tools that are free out there that really don't cost much with AI. So I think there's a lot of different reasons that could be considered.
For sure. Thank you, Greg. So let's take a look at the results. So we're seeing that the three competing votes here we have is around the unclear where AI would add real value. It's also about limited staff capacity, time, or expertise, and also privacy, ethical, or trust concerns, like you mentioned, Greg, here. And we ask this question because this mix of factors came through clearly in the research. There isn't one thing specifically that's holding back organizations. It's a combination of clarity, capacity, trust, and also competing priorities. So let's take a look at the results. So this slide captures one of the most important dynamics in the research, and it's a very relatable one. Like I said, most professionals believe AI will matter and fairly soon. And as you can see, nearly 70% see it as necessary in the next 2 to 3 years. And at the same time, far fewer see it as a top priority today. And that gap isn't about pushing back on AI. It reflects something more practical, which is that organizations are balancing readiness, clarity, and competing priorities. And what stood out to us the most is that this is actually a grounded approach. Teams want to move forward, but in ways that feel responsible, intentional, and aligned with real needs. And that perspective mirrors how we've been approaching this research and our thinking overall. We've acknowledged that where AI is headed, while being thoughtful about when and how it's applied. So progress doesn't have to be rushed to be real. And on the next slide, we're going to see here how cautious these organizations are and why. So when we look at organizations like yours, there's strong openness to AI where it supports work in the background like data analysis, reporting, or communications. About 70% are open to those uses. But that comfort drops by about 20 points when AI moves closer to people, especially in areas like staff management or scheduling, where trust and judgment matter most. The key takeaway here is that this caution reflects responsibility, not resistance to progress. Organizations are being thoughtful about how AI affects people, relationships, and culture, and that care is what's shaping where boundaries are drawn. So I'll stop here and ask Greg, does this align with what you're seeing in your conversations? Are you noticing the same balance between curiosity and caution?
Yes, I would agree. I mean, a lot of our staff are, cautious for the right reason. They want to, make sure they're thoughtful and um, align with, what you have here with the data. We had an instance not too long ago where we were, working on a sort of rephrasing of some language. And, I remember we were in a room and one of the staff had never really used AI and was like amazed at, how easy, we were able to sort of put new thoughts together. And, it was sort of that, oh, this is kind of neat. And, okay, how can we implement this? How can I add this into my work? So it's sort of that being cautious but being responsible at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love this answer. So I'm passing over to Andrew, who will discuss the community-led progress and how AI is evolving from here.
And I'll just point out that what Greg just said is very much echoed in the chat. A few people have chimed in talking about not having policies in place. So, having the desire. Christina talked about figuring out what tools are best to use. We all know ChatGPT, but having so many competitors. And then Sophie acknowledged the environmental impact and her feelings around that. So I think those are great comments that are part of this whole picture.
Yeah, and I'll comment on something there for the points in the chat. That the space is moving really fast, and the interesting thing is that these different tools and platforms are trying to build a unique identity in their own space. And the result of that is there are different tools that are most useful for creating content and copy and writing, marketing, outreach, that sort of thing. And there's other tools that perform better as agents completing tasks for you, building PowerPoints or images or what have you. And when it comes to organizational policy, it I think it's wise to understand where you want to implement AI in your organization before you go to the next step of choosing what tools you're going to use. Because if you do it in the wrong order, you can find that you may adopt a tool that, as Greg said earlier, can have implications for your budget and your spending, and it's not really effective at what you decide to use it for. So I think that internal policy is probably one of the first steps in the decision making process around AI. But let's get back to the research. I want to talk about community led progress. And so far, the research that we've shown shows strong alignment, along with thoughtful boundaries around how AI is used in our space. And this final section focuses on what data points toward next. So a community-led path forward, grounded in both people and evidence, in centered on using AI in ways that genuinely support the work you do. So when we step back and we look at the research on the whole, one theme rises above everything else. Ines mentioned it, it's people. And the data doesn't point toward rapid transformation or chasing new tools. It points toward progress that protects access, relationships, and ultimately trust, which are the things that make community recreation meaningful in the first place. And I think what stood out to us is that this aligns strongly with how many of you already lead your organizations, which is putting community needs first and pivoting your approach when the need arises and clearly supports your mission. So the rest of this section focuses on what that kind of responsible people first progress could look like in practice. So what the research consistently points to is support for AI when it lowers barriers to participation. About 80% of organizations are open to using AI to help people access information more easily, whether that's through clear guidance, navigation, language support, and so on. And at the same time, 87% of community members say experiences still need to feel personal and supportive, even as technology is introduced. And so, taken together, the message here is clear that AI is most welcome when it reduces friction and expands access, uh, but with the caveat that the human connection can't be lost, that communities so value. Um, as we look at how AI shows up in these community settings, the research makes one thing very clear, which is that trust is non-negotiable. So when we asked community members to rank their concerns, data and privacy and security came up as a top concern, followed closely by maintaining that human connection. Accuracy and reliability also ranked consistently high. And these aren't abstract worries. They're the foundations of community relationships. Because if people don't trust how their information is handled or feel that technology is starting to replace human care, participation starts to erode. And that's why responsible progress isn't about asking communities to accept trade-offs. It's more about using technology in ways that protect trust and strengthen the relationships that keep people engaged in your communities and with your organizations. The last signal here I want to talk about is the research brings this back to capacity. So community members aren't asking for less human interaction; they're asking for more of it, and they recognize that staff time is often stretched thin. You have about 70% support that support AI being used for repetitive behind the scene tasks when it helps staff spend more time supporting people directly in the community. And I think that's an important distinction because AI is welcomed when it protects what people value most, so relationships and care and meaningful experiences. And in that sense, giving time back to staff isn't just an operational benefit, it becomes a community benefit. And this can be reassuring news that people aren't looking for technology to replace the human role. They just want more time, more care, and more connection from the people who serve them. And so with that, I'm going to hand back to Ines to talk about AI where it matters.
Thank you, Andrew. So what we've seen in this research today is clear. Organizations don't need more AI noise. They need AI that's practical, secure, and outcome-driven. And that's exactly where Amelia stands today. As we wrap up, I want to reinforce that Amelia's AI positioning is fully aligned with the research we explored today. We believe in being intentional with AI, applying it where it drives meaningful, measurable outcomes for community organizations. And that means leveraging AI natively through Cecilia, for example. It's our AI assistant, 24-hour, 7 days a week AI assistant working around the clock, but also through other industry-leading partners that are allowing us to enable outcome-specific capabilities like demand forecasting, predictive fundraising and engagement, and conversion acceleration. So our approach is grounded in 3 core pillars: security, transparency, and sustainability. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about our AI practices and capabilities, I invite you to visit the link shared here and explore how we're bringing this approach to life with Amelia. And as we come to the end of today's session, I'd like to invite you all with one overarching reflection. When you step back and look at everything we've discussed, responsible progress becomes less about the specific technologies you implement and more about the stewardship guiding those decisions. And at its core, it begins by reinforcing the spaces where communities already feel supported and ensuring innovation strengthens, not disrupts, that foundation. From there, it's about applying AI with intention, using it to remove barriers, protect equitable access, and simplify the experience for both staff and clients. And just as importantly, it requires designing with trust and transparency woven into every step so technology feels empowering rather than uncertain. And when approached this way, technology doesn't replace the human element, it creates more room for it. It gives teams more capacity to serve, connect, and focus on what truly matters. And that is what responsible progress looks like in the community recreation. Thank you all for joining us today and being part of this conversation. We truly appreciate your time and engagement. We'll now open the floor for any questions.
Okay, we've got a few coming in. For Greg, how do you involve staff in decisions about new tools without overwhelming them?
I listen. I try to listen more than anything. I'm not a technology expert. I don't have an IT background, but obviously I work with technology as we all do. So I think just asking the right questions, figuring out where there might be gaps in your organization, how you could do things more efficient, easier, faster, but still maintain accuracy and um, you know that you're whatever we're working on is reliable in the end is important. But I think I think what you guys were saying at the end about not about making sure that our staff um, can ultimately have those conversations with members and still maintain that human connection is really important. And if people can use AI to alleviate some of the tasks that are burdensome for staff, whether it's scheduling or whether it's speeding up a registration process or whatever it is, so that they can then have more time to have those human connections and those interactions to get to know members better, to build stronger relationships with their community, then it's time well spent. So
Excellent. Thanks, Greg. For Andrew or Ines, a question about if Cecilia is active. If you can speak to that, what's available today with Cecilia?
Cecilia is already active, and I'll share the link in the chat where you can learn more about it. But I also see a question for Greg on the experience of using it and how it's improved things. So I'd love to hear from Greg on that as well. And that link in the chat will give you some extra context on the tool.
yeah, Cecilia is great. It's like I said, it's a great tool for our staff. I think the best part about it is that it's 24/7. So our Y's open 117 hours a week. So it's just not possible for us to have someone here all the time that can answer the variety of questions that come up from members, especially when you have staff that might only work 4 hours a week or might only work 6 hours a week. They might not be as familiar with the database as someone and the CRM as someone who works full time and 40 hours a week, but that person's not here on Friday night or Saturday night or Sunday morning when those questions come up. So having a tool that staff can plug into and ask a basic question or check something, or hey, where do I find this, is I think is really valuable. So that's how we utilize it.
Excellent. Thank you. We had a question come in. What insight do you think matters most for leaders to incorporate right now? I'm curious to hear your perspectives on what's most important.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? The whole idea of community-led progress is understanding for your own use cases, what areas of your organization would technological improvements help to enable better community connection. So, I mean, I think the answer is going to vary from case to case, but I think, internally speaking, if it can support programming, for instance, and programming is taking up the bulk of your team's time just due to the variety of programs you offer, or the limited staff resources, then that might be a great place to invest. Whereas if your problems are more related to keeping folks engaged and welcoming new folks into your center or your organization, what have you, then maybe marketing and outreach is an area where it's going to most support you. So I think it's assessing where are you losing time and momentum, and building your internal policy around that, and that will lead you to being able to decide on the right AI tools for your needs. That would be my perspective.
Yeah, and if I could jump on, I agree. Like we were having a conversation yesterday with our marketing team, and one of our departments is, I want to say struggling, but not trending the same way that it had for the past, 4 or 6 months. So it's kind of on a little slower path than some of the others. And we were talking about some of the topics, and one of our marketing staff said, those descriptions, they really haven't changed much in the last couple of years. We can use AI and sort of revamp them and make them sound a little bit better. And I was like, that's a great idea. So I think sometimes just having conversations with your staff, because and your team that you have that works with you, because what I might be thinking a good use for AI, for me, might be one thing, and it might be totally different for someone else. And you may not even know that that tool exists until you listen to someone else and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm using this. You didn't know that." Especially with AI, because it's so new, I would say.
Excellent. We've got a couple related questions that I'll throw at you all. One regarding AI helping in the customer purchasing process. So could Amelia, for example, offer suggestions based on a member's habits, skill level, etc.? And someone else asked, what does the AI roadmap look like for Amelia for the next year? So we might be able to address those together.
Yeah, those are great questions. I'll start off with the AI roadmap. So right now we're being very deliberate about our AI roadmap. So rather than committing to a long list of future features, we're focused on validating impact with the capabilities we've already introduced, like with Cecilia or with our other specific capabilities that we're enabling through industry-leading partners. And our priority is to ensure that these foundations are delivering measurable value before expanding further. So as we look ahead, these roadmap decisions will be driven by a few key important things. The first one being a clear operational ROI for our customers. Also the alignment with our core recreation and membership focus. And lastly, still maintaining those high standards around the security, transparency, and sustainability. So like we've presented today, instead of chasing AI trends, we're taking a measured approach and scaling intentionally based on real outcomes and customer readiness. And to answer the question about AI helping the customer purchasing process, currently Cecilia is only available for admins, and it's in our plans in the future to extend it to clients and have those suggestions offered based on different behaviors and other criteria. But currently, our roadmap is focused on evolving what we currently had, and then we're headed, of course, into a more client-facing capabilities.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that last point that irrespective of AI capabilities, part of this is already baked into the purchasing experience in Amelia. So the ability to suggest or even require associated activities, for instance, is something you can configure yourselves, albeit in its current form, I suppose is most useful for promoting programs that maybe are underperforming compared to where you hope to see them. But all of that to say, I think AI will only further the ability to offer personalized experiences in the future. But the fact of being able to suggest activities or bundle activities is already something built into the platform natively. So how we take that to the next level with the help of AI is something we'll figure out through feedback with the YMCAs and JCCs and Parks and Rec customers that we serve. By understanding, Ines mentioned ROI, like what are the most pressing needs, and sort of think about our roadmap that way.
If I may, I'll speak to my experience with Cecilia for a second. I joined the Amelia team about 6 months ago, so I'm still fairly new here. And Ines mentioned that it's available for admins, and that's a term that we use to mean all staff users, not high level system admins as you might think of it. And so, me personally, I've gone through a lot of the training and gotten a lot of folks. But man, is Cecilia great when I am like, oh, I don't quite remember. I know they trained me on this. But I can ask Cecilia, and I don't have to. Not that anyone would be upset with me for asking by any means, but man, it's nice to just be able to ask her. And I equate that with maybe somebody who just works a shift or two a week. That part-time person that you can't possibly keep all of the things that you need to do in the system in your head if you're not a full-time person doing it every day. And so I've used it regularly as a tool, and I think that a lot of your part-time staff, especially, would find her helpful. We've got a question about do you think families actually notice when AI is being used?
I think when it's too fluffy, for lack of a better term, yes. But that's more if you're like, language in an email or in communications with members. I think if it sounds a little too fake and not authentic, I do think so. I know I do, and other, organizations that, I sort of interact with. So I think that's why it's important to have a balance of, you know, human interaction and the real human touch, and also using AI as a tool.
Excellent. And someone mentioned in the chat, I think they expect it, and I, I would agree.
Yeah.
You'll see it pop up everywhere. We are planning a webinar in 5 or 6 weeks that will have our colleague Sarah, who launched Cecilia, as well as some other customers. So you can stay tuned for that. I will do sort of a last call for Q&A questions. I think we've gotten through them all. If I have missed yours, please flag that for me. But I think we're close to wrapping up. I will put my contact information up on the screen here. If you'd like to see Amelia, if you haven't yet, we'd love to show it to you. So get in touch, and I will just leave it for Greg and Andrew and Ines for any last comments you'd like to make. We do have one more question. Great. Thank you, Teresa. How can we tell the customer that their data is safe? I think from leakage. Leakage? Yeah. How can we tell the customer their data is safe?
Yeah, this is a really tough question. I think it speaks to the importance of starting with internal policy and doing research around what is impacting the privacy around data. I think that there's a whole consolidation of information that has to happen. Legislation from what platforms um, are themselves saying publicly about their own practices security wise when it comes to their tools. But I think the most important thing is, again, adopting AI in use cases that make sense and not getting too ahead of bringing it into all areas of the organization where there is a risk or concern. Um, so I think that very incremental adoption of tools is the answer for the uncertainty, because I mean the question of privacy and security is, I think, still unanswered. Things are moving so fast that we don't really know where we'll be in 6 months when it comes to AI. So I think in short, the answer is kind of the conclusions of the research, which is, adopt it where it matters, adopt it where it can help you improve your connection to the community, but don't feel like it's a necessity in all departments of your organization today, because I think what we're seeing overwhelmingly from the market is that that's not the case.
Any last thoughts from our panelists, and then we'll wrap it up.
No, I'll just say I know why the YMCAs they're working on a collaborative at the national level for like a secure platform, and there's a lot of cool stuff coming out. I think the Cincinnati Y is driving a lot of that research, and I was on a presentation on that a few months ago, and there's a lot of cool stuff. So I think it's just going to constantly be evolving, and we're going to have several of these kind of conversations and thinking over the future, and as things change and adapt.
Absolutely. All right, folks. Well, thank you for joining us today. We hope that you found this valuable. And as I mentioned at the beginning, there will be a survey and more webinars to come. So everyone have an excellent rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, folks.